The United States Senate has rejected an attempt to limit President Donald Trump's authority to continue the war with Iran, after Senate Republicans voted down a measure that would have required him to seek Congress's permission before proceeding. The War Powers Resolution, introduced by Virginia Democratic Senator Tim Kaine, failed by a vote of 47 to 53, with the result breaking largely along party lines. The vote came as Democrats raised concerns that the campaign is illegal and could draw the country into a prolonged conflict. In separate developments linked to the wider crisis, oil prices rose in early Asian trade amid ongoing worries about supply disruption, and senior U.S. military officials briefed lawmakers on defensive missile interceptor stocks. International governments are also preparing evacuation measures, including New Zealand's deployment plans for military aircraft. In Part 2, we'll begin the detailed breakdown with the Senate vote and what the defeated resolution would have required. The Senate vote centered on a War Powers Resolution introduced by Virginia Democratic Senator Tim Kaine, aimed at requiring President Donald Trump to obtain Congress's permission before continuing the war with Iran. Senate Republicans voted the measure down, with the resolution failing 47 to 53 in a vote that broke largely along party lines. Democrats argued the effort was necessary because they believe the campaign is illegal and could risk pushing the United States into a prolonged conflict. Under the proposal, the United States air and naval campaign against Iran would have been forced to end, and President Trump would have been required to go to Congress before re-entering the war. Ahead of the vote on Wednesday, Democratic Senator Chris Murphy said the resolution was needed to prevent President Trump from repeating in Iran what he described as the follies of previous U.S. presidents in Afghanistan, Libya, and elsewhere. Coming up in Part 3, we'll turn to related developments, including oil market movement and new details from a closed-door military briefing to lawmakers. In financial markets, oil prices moved higher in early Asian trade on Thursday as concerns persisted over supply disruption tied to the Middle East conflict. At about 11:01 p.m. GMT, West Texas Intermediate, after closing little changed on Wednesday at $74.66 a barrel, was up 1.86% at $76.05 a barrel. Brent North Sea crude, which had ended the previous day flat at $81.40 a barrel, was not being traded at that time, according to Agence France-Presse. The conflict has effectively closed shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, a waterway through which a fifth of the world's seaborne crude oil passes, along with significant volumes of liquefied natural gas. At the same time, in a closed-door briefing on Tuesday, senior military officials told lawmakers that the United States was rapidly depleting its supply of defensive missile interceptors used to bring down Iranian attack drones. The officials, including the chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, said Iran had been deploying drones in a manner designed to force the United States to use advanced Patriot and THAAD interceptors while keeping its own high-tech supersonic and ballistic missiles in reserve. Officials said the United States was therefore moving quickly to destroy as many Iranian drone and missile launch sites as possible before having to prioritize which incoming targets to intercept. According to two people who spoke on condition of anonymity to discuss sensitive details, that effort has become increasingly urgent. A White House spokesperson did not immediately respond to a request for comment, while a spokesperson for the Joint Chiefs of Staff declined to comment, citing operations security. The briefing came as Iran, in retaliation for U.S. strikes, was said to have launched thousands of one-way shod drones at American military installations and assets across the region. By flying slowly and close to the ground, those drones are described as better able to evade conventional air defenses than ballistic missiles. In Part 4, we'll close with international evacuation preparations and a final summary of the latest developments. International governments are also moving to prepare for possible evacuations as the conflict continues. New Zealand has ordered 2 military aircraft to the Middle East in preparation for evacuating its citizens from the region. Foreign Minister Winston Peters urged New Zealanders to shelter in place and to leave the region if it was safe to do so. He said on Thursday that Wellington would deploy consular staff and 2 Defense Force planes so they could be ready when conditions allow for civilian evacuation operations. Speaking during a tour of South America, Peters said New Zealand could not be sure when or how such evacuations might be possible, but wanted to be prepared if conditions on the ground made them feasible. Agence France-Presse also reported Peters saying the C-130 Hercules planes would ferry people out of danger to a safe country, where they could then use a commercial carrier to return home. Peters said more than 3,000 New Zealanders were registered as living in the Middle East, including 23 in Iran and 62 in Israel, and added that New Zealand may also evacuate other nationalities. He also noted that neighboring Australia has said it has 115,000 citizens in the region. In summary, the U.S. Senate has rejected a measure to curb President Trump's Iran war powers, Oil prices have risen amid supply worries. U.S. officials have warned lawmakers of rapidly depleting defensive interceptor stocks, and New Zealand has positioned military aircraft for potential evacuations. That is the latest based strictly on the reported updates.